Welcome back to Crane's Barn Grill. It's me again. We're going to do another Forensic Files review. This one is A Woman Scorned. And I've got my rum and coke right here. So, and I've got my popcorn. So let's get into it. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello? Can I ask who's calling?
In December of 1994, Joanne Katranak told friends about a disturbing telephone call she received from someone she had never met.
Stop calling here!
She's acting.
3 days later,
Gotta act.
Joanne Katranak and her 4-month-old son Alex disappeared without a trace. Telephone records could not identify the caller, but investigators suspected that the incident might hold the key to their disappearance.
That would be a logical thing to think. All right, let's see if we figure out this disappearance.
Joanne Katranak was a strikingly attractive young woman.
Oh,
a good
that hair
student
back then.
and an
Look how big it
outstanding
was.
athlete who had
My
hoped
wife
to
had hair
pursue
like that.
a career
It
in
was
the
awesome.
fashion and beauty industry.
She was very concerned about her appearance. She was very, very pretty.
Joanne was known to family and friends for her upbeat personality and optimism.
I'm sure her smile
qualities
lit
that
up a
were
room,
tested when
and
her
that's the
first
reason she's
marriage
missing.
ended in a
So I'm
painful
glad I don't have a
divorce.
smile like that.
But in
least I hope I
1992,
don't.
she met Andrew Katranak, a 38-year-old building contractor who was 14 years her senior. Despite the age difference, the two hit it off immediately.
They said became really good friends. And then, of course, it escalated into more than friendship.
After a brief courtship, Andrew and Joanne married, and the couple moved into
It's weird how they
Andrew's
take
home
pictures like that and
in
they
the
look
small
so
working-class
normal, look so
town
happy,
of
and then
Catasauqua,
it's
Pennsylvania.
just
15
2 years
months
later, they just hate
Joanne
each other.
gave
And it's
birth
just-
to a healthy
it's always
baby boy.
weird when you look back at
named
pictures
Alex.
like that.
I have pictures of me holding Alex in my office, and you know, he just was smiling all the time, and you know, he was big for his age. He, you know, nice healthy baby, and you know, it was just a joy to have around.
Nice healthy baby, big for his age. Nice healthy baby. Means
On
fat.
December
He's a
15,
fat baby.
1994,
Which are
Joanne
the cutest
Katranak
babies?
called her mother-in-law at 1:15 in the afternoon. Joanne said she and the baby would be right over to pick her up so that the three of them could go Christmas shopping together.
We'll be over in about 15 minutes.
But Joanne and the baby never arrived. Andrew Katranak came home from work around 6:30. He was surprised to find that his wife and son were not home. The baby's diaper bag was missing. Joanne's purse was gone too, so were their winter coats. There was nothing out of place inside the home. No money or valuables were missing. The only thing Andrew noticed was that the hinge on the basement door was pried from the door jamb, and the telephone line in the basement had been cut.
Well, that would look more like, I mean, they'd have to have like maybe a gunpoint or something like that, or someone that knew them, or, of course, it's the husband. You know, and he jimmied that stuff afterwards, after he, you know, did what he did and hastily tried to get away with it.
4 hours later at 10:30 that night, Andrew Katranak called police to report his wife and son
10:30?
missing. Relatives
I would've-
found Joanne's car.
You know, even back then, before we really had cell phones and stuff like that, if I came home and my wife and daughter weren't there, I would at least, you know, you got a landline. I'm calling her mom. I'm calling, you know, her, my mom, my dad, stuff. Are you with them? Calling friends, you know. An hour or so goes by to be like, I'm going to go ahead and call her friend. Have you seen him? But I'm not going to wait till, get home at 6 or 6:30. I'm not going to wait till 10:30 unless they said they already had something planned. And I don't think my wife would have waited that long either. And it's not out of trying to, you know, track somebody or butt into somebody's business. You just want to make sure they're not dead in a ditch somewhere and everything's cool and everything's okay. And something like this didn't happen. Especially because I like to watch Forensic Files, so that my mind goes to the worst place. Like, what if this? I better check just to make sure.
Down the street in the parking lot of a local bar, not in its usual location in the alley behind her house. Although it was locked, Joanne's keys
Oh,
were
that's
inside
suspicious.
the car. On the back headrest were several strands of long blonde hair, which did not belong to Joanne since she was brunette. On the distal end of the hairs were microscopic traces of dried blood. DNA analysis revealed that the blood was either from Joanne Katranak or her son,
That could be like a
Alex.
head injury. Somebody hit him in the head.
Investigators also began to check out Andrew's alibi, that he had been at work all day on a construction site.
Always going to check the husband first.
Sees her alive.
That's why
The
husbands,
vast majority of homicides.
you think you're doing good by cooperating. Say
are
lawyer.
committed by
Always say
a
lawyer.
person who the victim knows. So you cannot just eliminate that by accepting that an individual says, well, I wasn't there. I was at work.
They said that he must have something to do with the fact that she's disappeared, and the police actually said that, oh, she probably ran away with someone. In a million years, Joanne would never.
But the
never
police don't
have
know
run
that.
away.
They don't know her.
And I was quite angry.
Because the majority of what they
with,
see
the
are things
police
like that. And
that
they don't
they
know her.
accused
You
Anne.
know her. But they don't know her.
Days passed, then weeks. And when the banks reported there had been no activity on Joanne Katranak's credit cards, it was becoming painfully clear that Joanne and Alex had been the victims of foul play.
Well, yeah.
The Katranaks lived on a busy street across from a local bar. Neighbors said they saw nothing suspicious on the day of Joanne's disappearance, and police were skeptical that Joanne and her baby could have been abducted in broad daylight. But 4 months after they were reported missing, the worst fears of the police
What if she has a
were
head injury
confirmed.
to match that blood?
In a remote stretch of rural farmland, a farmer plowing his field noticed what first appeared to be a bundle of
See, they do
clothing.
stuff like that.
When he looked closer,
Oh,
he
man,
discovered
that's so sad.
the decomposed body of a woman lying on her back, and on her chest,
That's sad.
a baby. About 40 feet away was a baby rattle shaped like a phone. It was Alex Katranak's favorite toy.
From then on, our life changed. So anything after that did not have as much of an impact as when they were
I think they
found.
just dumped the body
4 months they were
when if
missing
you'd have
was
taken a few
absolutely
minutes
the most painful
to bury
time
the body or
in my
whatever,
life.
then it may have even
Of
been
all
way longer before they noticed anything, and even more evidence could have been gone. But it seems like a lot of times they just dump it on the side of the road, or you're out in the field. I mean, you already made your way out there, so you could take a few minutes to, you know, bury the body a little bit, even if it's not real low, so somebody just casually walking by doesn't see it. And it's out it was kind of in a wooded area, so people would have just been walking through. It's not like they would have plowed that area or anything. So if you can make it not visible to just a casual walker by, it may have been, you know, years before they found that. But they always seem to just dump it, like they don't have time to do the extra couple of steps. But they're criminals, so they're dumb. That's why they get caught.
Close to the bodies was a milk bottle and diaper bag.
You don't mess with
Two
babies.
long blonde
How would you
hairs
do that? How would you
still
kill a baby?
attached. The hairs were microscopically similar to the hairs found on the headrest of Joanne Katranak's car. Since Joanne Katranak's jewelry was found with the body, the motive did not appear to be robbery. An autopsy discovered that Joanne Katranak had been shot once in the face at point-blank range with a .22 caliber pistol. She had also been beaten.
Due to the fact that she sustained one gunshot wound to the face and then approximately 19 blows to the head.
If there's no robbery and there's no rape or signs of signs of rape or a struggle like that, it's going to have to be the husband. Nobody just breaks in, doesn't rob you, kills you, and dumps you. It's got to be the husband.
Led us to believe that the gun probably had jammed, and because of the gun jamming, the assailant had to resort to blunt object and beat her about the head.
The coroner was not sure whether little Alex died from exposure
How do you kill a baby?
or had been suffocated.
Man.
I can remember till this day seeing that infant being lifted off of the abdomen of his mother. It certainly tugged at our heartstrings. You know, it brought a tear to my eye. And if nothing more, it certainly galvanized the law enforcement community and got us moving in the right direction.
The bodies were found in an extremely remote area, about 15 miles from the Katranak's home, which told investigators something important about the killer.
They'd have to know.
Victims were on a
They'd
trail.
have to know where it was.
So after inspecting the scene very thoroughly, we felt very strongly that the person who had killed Joanne and Alex Katranak had been in this area before and was familiar with these trails.
Yeah, because you're not just going to know a wooded area and be from out of town. So you've got to be somebody in that town, somebody that lives there, like the husband. Unless he or she was sleeping with somebody, and it could have been them.
The trails were used by horseback riders, and Andrew Katranak
So,
told police that one of his former girlfriends managed a horse stable.
If she's cheating, it
The
could have been
Silver
her.
Shadow
She could have gotten
Farms,
jealous.
just a mile down the road.
But you'd had to walk him out because another woman, I don't know, be able to carry a woman out to a car. She'd have had to have. She could have, maybe. You put him in a, wrap him up, maybe drag him. Maybe.
Her name was Patricia Rohrer. She
Did
and
they have a
Andrew
garage, I
lived
wonder?
together for 2 years in the late 1980s and again briefly in 1991. When they broke up, Patricia Rohrer moved to North Carolina, had a child with another man, and had been living there ever since. When police questioned Patricia Rohrer at her home in North Carolina, they immediately noticed that she was a brunette and not blonde.
Are you Patricia Rohrer?
It's going to be her.
Hairs found
The black
in
hairs.
Joanne's car
Because
and
he
on
doesn't
the
have black hair.
diaper bag.
Can we ask you a few questions?
Were you in Pennsylvania during the week of December 15 last year?
No.
Rohrer said she was in North Carolina on the day of Joanne's disappearance, 500 miles away from Pennsylvania, and had witnesses to prove it.
All right, thanks for your time.
I think she gave us something like 4 or 5 alibis as to where she was at. One, she was at a private club. One,
Is there a club in every town named Cowboys?
Feed
Just wondered.
for horses. One, she was at a tanning salon.
But Andrew Katranak had another surprise for investigators. He remembered that Patricia Rohrer called his home just 3 days
It's
before
her.
his wife and son
her.
disappeared.
Hello?
Joanne answered the phone, and when Patricia Rohrer identified herself, the two argued.
Look, Andy has told you to stop calling here. We have a baby now. We're happy together. Just leave us alone. Stop calling here.
Patricia Rohrer denied making that call, and her home telephone records confirmed her story. With brunette hair, an alibi, and no evidence she called the Katranak's home, investigators feared they had hit a dead end.
A dead end. Of course, we can use that
Investigators
language.
wanted to know as accurately as possible when Joanne and Alex Katranak were killed. Although the bodies were discovered
That's just
4 months
sad.
after they disappeared, it wasn't
That's why I
clear
couldn't be a
how
police
long
officer
the
or
bodies
anything.
had been
The first
in
time I
field.
walked up on something like that, I couldn't
The
handle
bodies
it. There's no
contained
way.
evidence of insect activity, and police asked Dr.
Especially with
Kei-Jun
a baby?
Kim, a forensic entomologist at Pennsylvania State University, for an analysis of what the insect activity revealed about the time of death.
This case was rather complicated because
Forensic entomologist, I bet he's just the
bodies
life of the
involved,
party.
2 victims involved.
Study of bugs for your life and stuff. I bet you're
At the same
just,
time that a body were
you're just a really exciting
laying
person.
on the ground in the wild in wintertime. And so that there are different waves of insect invasions to the body.
First, Dr. Kim found the hard outer shell.
Don't get
of
me
the
wrong, I'm glad there's
Calliphora
people like
lividia,
that, so we can
shown
catch 'em.
here, magnified 150 times.
Got to have those nerds out there.
This
Gotta have
species
them.
of blowfly had progressed to its final stage of development. Dr. Kim also found another species, Sinomyopsis cadaverina, that was just beginning its 3rd and final stage of development. These 2 factors told Dr. Kim that the bodies had been in the field for at least 51 days, since early February. And when Dr. Kim looked at the local weather conditions, he also noticed another important piece of information. Between December 21st and the 28th, local temperatures were...
I wonder when they show scenes like that, I wonder, because they're just not filming him doing his job. You know, they're there interviewing him and stuff. I wonder if they go, okay, here's some printouts and stuff. Just act like you're looking at him and try to look serious, like you're really interested in it. I wonder what they say to somebody. Just look at that. Oh. You know, like you're doing your job. Like, I was just always wondered that.
Unseasonably warm, reaching 50 degrees, the perfect conditions for these two species to mate and lay eggs. Investigators now knew that the bodies had not been placed in the field recently. They were there since February and possibly as early as December, the time of the abduction. Patricia Rohrer's telephone records revealed that she made long-distance telephone calls from home almost every day. But there were no calls made between December 11th and the 16th, suggesting she was not in North Carolina when Joanne Katranak and her son were abducted.
Back then, we used to make long-distance phone calls. Not anymore, but back then, yeah. I remember I got a $600 phone bill when I was, you know, in the military, and we were, you know, stationed in a different state, me and my wife, and it was her first time being, you know, away from home like that. We were first married, and yeah, had a $600 phone bill from her calling back home. That was a hard one, especially back then. $600, a lot of money. When you're especially just, you know, new to the military, you know, you don't get paid a whole lot.
Patricia said she was at the Cowboys nightclub in North Carolina on the night of the abduction. A state law requires all patrons of the club to sign in, but Patricia Rohrer was not signed in on that
To
date.
sign into a club?
Patricia Rohrer also denied
was a long
owning a
time ago.
.22 caliber pistol, and a search of her home turned up nothing. But one of her old boyfriends contradicted her. He told police Patricia Rohrer owned a .22 caliber chrome-plated semi-automatic weapon like this one, and said the gun
Those exes will
had a
always snitch
unique
on you.
characteristic.
Always.
An unusual feature about the gun, he stated, was the fact that you fire one shot out of the gun and the gun would jam. You couldn't fire a second shot. Well, that really caught our attention, of course.
You got to remember that. You know, that gives a little extra credibility when you remember a little detail like that.
But police still had the problem with the blonde hair found at the scene and in the victim's car, since Patricia Rohrer was a brunette.
And she looked at the warrant and she saw we were looking for dirty blonde
But
hair.
you're a girl, they
She's
color
sitting
their hair
there as
all
a
the
brunette
time.
saying, who's got dirty blonde hair? I don't
She
have
just
dirty
colored her
blonde
hair.
We were sitting in our office one day, and
You have to find
we
a
were
picture or
discussing
something.
how
Yeah.
could we determine what color Patricia
try to find a
Rohrer's
picture.
hair was at the time of the murder. And we both agreed that the only way to do that was to try to obtain a picture of her in and around the time of the murder.
After a little digging, police discovered that Patricia Rohrer competed in a horse show in Guthrie, Oklahoma in December
She
of
is radio. There you go. She'd be on
1994
film.
and had won a prize at the competition. The pictures of the winners that day showed Patricia Rohrer with bleached blonde hair. The photo
Look
was
at that.
taken just
Busted.
11 days before Joanne and Alex Katranak
You're busted.
disappeared.
It was just
But
days after
prosecutors
she
needed more
disappeared,
than
and you're
just
sitting there
the photograph.
smiling, knowing that you've
They
killed
needed to know for
killed
certain
somebody and a
whether
baby.
the blonde hair at the crime
Psycho.
scene belonged to Patricia Rohrer. Investigators' only hope was to try a new type of DNA test, one that had never been admitted into evidence in a Pennsylvania trial, something called mitochondrial DNA.
Mitochondrial,
Traditional DNA testing analyzes the nucleus of the cell, found in abundance in bodily fluids and tissue. But outside of the cell nucleus are what are known as mitochondria, cells that can be identified, although not as precisely as in traditional DNA testing. First, scientists washed the hair in detergent, then added a digest buffer to eliminate everything except the cells to be analyzed. In this gel-like matter is the DNA of a
Looks
killer.
like snot.
To identify the DNA sequence, a PCR test was conducted, and the mitochondrial DNA sequences from the blonde hair matched Patricia Rohrer's DNA profile.
Imagine that. Like
This
we already
was
didn't
enough
know that
to
one.
convince prosecutors that Patricia Rohrer was at the crime scene and inside Joanne Katranak's car.
Killed someone and their baby.
Patricia Rohrer was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors believe that Patricia Rohrer was in Pennsylvania and not North Carolina when she called for Andrew
Wouldn't they be able to look
Katranak.
where that phone number came from? I guess back then they couldn't see where it actually came from. What phone, specific
When
phone?
Joanne answered the phone, Patricia's hopes of meeting Andrew for old time's sake were quickly dashed.
We have a baby now. We're happy together. Just leave us alone. Stop calling here.
Man, they're gonna milk that one scene, aren't they? That's the third time
And
they
when
showed it.
Joanne
Third
hung
time.
up, prosecutors believe Rohrer
Picked a different day when nobody was expecting her.
and cut the telephone line to prevent any further calls.
If you'd have waited till a different day when nobody was expecting her, then nobody would have been looking for her. But you could have taken a chance that the mom call said she was supposed to come over, she hasn't, and then they're worried, then they're out looking immediately. That's why if anybody takes me by gunpoint, I'm going to say, shoot me now. And don't you shoot me now in my house,
Patricia Rohrer
then to shoot
forced
me later in
Joanne
a
into her
field
car,
like this,
ordering her to
later
drive
somewhere.
to the remote
Just shoot me now.
farmland.
That's what I always told my kids when they were younger. I said, if somebody wants to grab you and try to drag you into their car, yell, scream, shout, no matter what they say. They could say, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your parents, I'm going to kill whatever. You'd rather die right there on the side of the road than die 5 hours later after they do whatever they're going to do with you. You'd rather go ahead and whatever they're going to do, just do it right there. You know, get it over with. But yell, scream, kick, whatever. Don't get in that vehicle with that person.
Patricia Rohrer fired a single shot into Joanne Katranak, and when the pistol jammed, beat her to death. The baby was left on his mother's chest.
Beat her to death and left the baby to die.
Found. But Patricia Rohrer left 2 bleached blonde hairs at the crime scene, and some hair stained with the victim's blood in Joanne's car as she drove it back to town. At the trial, Patricia Rohrer's defense team scoffed at the notion that an alleged argument she had with Joanne Katranak was a believable motive for murder.
And the defense was saying, come on, that can't be a motive. Normal people don't act like that. And he was right. Normal people don't act like that. But this particular
But
person
she's a
was
psycho.
not normal and acted just that
He killed
way.
a woman
After
and her
2
baby, so
hours
she's
of
psycho.
deliberation, the jury found Patricia
An argument like
Rohrer
that's enough for a
guilty
psycho to act
of
like
both
that.
murders, and she was sentenced to life in prison.
She's going to have to live with what she did. And I hope her life isn't happy, because mine isn't. I tried to get on with
She's probably
my
only
life,
upset that she's in jail.
and,
She's not upset that she killed anybody. She's
I've
a psycho.
made some, strides. But you never, ever get over the loss of a child or a grandchild.
No, you couldn't.
The case was a first in the state of Pennsylvania,
But
and
she's
was
a
only
child
the
and a
3rd
grandchild.
time in the United States that a conviction was secured with mitochondrial DNA.
With a
This
thing
case
full
is
of
a
snot.
classic example of the power of mitochondrial DNA.
It looks like a
The only
like
forensic
snot.
evidence obtained in this case really were the 3 hairs from the crime scene. 3 hairs that, unless you look very hard for, you might very easily pass over.
I'd have to say this, that in all my years in law enforcement,
He's not leaving any of that mitochondrial
the
DNA
Katranak
behind.
investigation
He's safe
is
on that
of
one.
The finest pieces of police work that I've had the pleasure of being involved in. There were many unique challenges to this investigation. The technology that we employed in the development of at least one key piece of forensic evidence was literally 21st century technology in the 20th century.
All right, well, that was episode of Forensic Files. You know, a woman scorned. I should have just been a woman who's a psycho, is what that is. So, wow, that's crazy. I mean, they weren't even having an affair, were they? I don't remember. I see so many of these. I think they're, and you're just going to kill her and her baby? That's insane. Insane. But anyways, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And if there's any kind of other Forensic Files episodes you want me to watch, or any crime documentaries or something like that, I like the crime and you know, serial killer stuff and things like that you want me to watch and review, leave a comment in the bottom, and I'll see if I can get to it if I haven't seen it before. If I've seen it before, it would kind of be cheating to watch that one again. But if I haven't seen it, then I'll give it a shot, and you never know. So thank you for watching Crane's Bar and Grill, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.